Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Top 10 Favorite and from what I believe are the best performances by some of the greatest actors of all time. Yes, sir, boss, I'm starting from 10 and then jingling my way up to Mouseville. And up to number 1. And remember, I have seen every film attainable of these artists, so these lists come from truthful and beautiful accuracy. No doubt about it. Happy Black History Month, my friends, as it should be studied every single month, right? Not just the shortest month of the year. And do I have a treasure for you this month on an actor that should never be forgotten, that shall always be cherished, for he put nothing but smiles on our faces and tears in our eyes. The amazing Michael Clarke Duncan. Born in his sweet home, Chicago, from a single mom with his sister, he already had to step in as a man of the house when his father left pretty young. Being 6'5", he tried out for the Chicago Bears as a tight end, but his dear mother didn't want him to play for fear of getting seriously injured. So he wanted to become an actor instead. He always wanted to be a classic Hollywood actor on the big screen, name in lights, and his mind was always there, even while he was digging ditches for People's Gas Company and bouncing at Chicago nightclubs. Co-workers would often call him Hollywood, making fun of him, thinking how that's such a long shot for him to become a star. Look how freaking huge he is. But he always used it as fuel, as he knew one day he would be a shining star. Making the trip to LA, he of course started out with more bouncing, but soon became bodyguards for big stars like LL Cool J, Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, and the notorious B.I.G. Crazy enough, Michael switched his shift with someone guarding Biggie, which was the night Biggie got shot, wrapping his brain around how if he did work that shift, how things might have been different, but he knew he had to get out of that line of work as he continued auditioning. If you keep persevering, you keep going, keep the dream alive, it won't be long until you get your shot, just as Michael did by the mid-90s. Michael Clarke Duncan, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the most beautiful treasures in Hollywood that ever existed, for he was the epitome of the gentle giant. He had a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but he had the biggest heart you ever saw. Who else would give you $5 if you recognized him by their full name? Once he became a lovely central figure in film, TV, and video games would be running right alongside him. As you know, we only cover film here, folks. But remember, his fantastic portrayals on 2.5 Men, Chuck, The Finder, CSI, and look at the many voiceover works like Jimmy Neutron, King of the Hill, The Proud Family, not to mention video games like Forgotten Realms, The Suffering, Saints Row, and God of War 2. That low, powerful bass voice is just unmistakable, undeniable, and amazingly commanding that your ears perked up, your soul shook every time that man spoke words from his heart. So come on and get Papa Bear, folks. We're talking about the top 10 best performances of the underrated, great, gentle giant himself, Michael Clarke Duncan. Starting off at number 10, Planet of the Apes. Shocking? Yeah, shocked me a bit, I'm not gonna lie as well, to even start at number 10. But ladies and gentlemen, there are certainly lovely things about this well-intentioned 2001 remake, or excuse me, reimagining of the classic sci-fi drama with Michael Clarke as Colonel Attar, taking control of the damn dirty humans in 5021 AD. But recently crash-landed astronaut Leo, played by Marky Mark, will lead a rebellion and plan to escape this surreal planet. This film is universally hated. And yes, it's not as great as, say, the original franchise, even though they trail off after the second one. And obviously not as good as the new franchise, which is pretty damn great. But to be directed by Tim Burton, the film has to give some sort of charm, and that it does. What helps is Michael Clarke is very much present as always, and is commanding in his $10 million role. Apparently, Djimon Hounsou turned down the role, but Michael Clarke is just having a ball, and is just powerful and honestly scary in the role. I just love the big fight scene between he and Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. What happened to him? He should have a lovely comeback. But Michael Clarke was incredibly happy as hell to be part of this whole celebration of a reimagining that just feels great. Even though it's ending, yeah, I thought it was funny then, and it still is. We should go a little easy on it. It's just fun. Number 9, Sin City. Ooh, yeah. The edgy film based on the great neo-noir comics by Frank Miller, who co-directed it with Robert Rodriguez and special guest director Quentin Tarantino, with a phenomenal all-star cast, including, of course, Mr. Duncan as Manute, a gigantic boss hitman, practically dressed up like a valet, who's always cordial and polite, even when he's snapping your neck in two. In the episode called The Big Fat Kill, he shows up and becomes one of the main antagonists to Clive Owen's Dwight McCarthy, and the prostitutes led by Gail, played in such sexy fashion by Rosario Dawson. When you see this man, you are scared shiitakeless with his domineering presence and his golden eye, called by Roger Ebert himself as brilliant. This film is such an innovative and disturbingly fun piece of cinema that I still cherish when I saw it as a teenager in movie theaters with my friends. Even though he was certainly a teddy bear, Michael Clarke Duncan could always bring the goods as a villain, no matter what. Number 8, Redemption Road. Who would ever think we would see Michael Clarke Duncan playing a drifting country blues music singing and dancing cowboy? I certainly would never imagine it. But here we are with another independent feature directed by Mario Van Peebles, the same director as New Jack City, for crying out loud, directing Duncan as Augie, who drives Bailey, a down-on-his-luck blues guitarist, across the South to collect his grandfather's inheritance, but really needs a mentor in his life. So Augie is basically that man, but at the same time, Augie needs forgiveness for his not-so-clean past, so the two form an unlikely friendship that will resolve in some healing. This is a case where Duncan picks up the slack in the acting department from his scene partner, Morgan Simpson. No disrespect, just he ain't cutting it. The movie would have been a little better, but it's already special because Michael Clarke Duncan adds his gentle giant touch for a little more flavor than what it's supposed to. You especially love a little country dancing that Duncan puts in there, which again, you never think you're gonna catch from him. But the man is just full of them surprises. Number 7, the Slammin Salmon. Oh boy, from the masterminds, if you can call them that, from Broken Lizard. Yes, the team behind Super Troopers and Beer Fest. We have yet another independent film, this time a comedy that I honestly did not expect to enjoy. Now, I'm being damn honest about that because of the nature of crude humor, for sure. It just never was my jam, so to speak. So when you have Michael freaking Clarke Duncan in the mix, playing the film's antagonist, again, Cleo Salmon, a heavyweight boxing champion who owns the Slammin Salmon restaurant in Miami and abuses his staff horrendously, especially by ordering them to make $20,000 in profit at the restaurant in one night to pay off some gambling debts. Otherwise, he will just kick the manager's ass, played by Broken Lizard alum Kevin Heffernan, who also directs the film. The crew is genuinely funny as hell, as you would expect if you enjoy the crap out of Super Troopers and Beer Fest. Michael Clarke Duncan really sinks his teeth into the most hilarious movements. How he is so damn vulgar, so mean, and just a not so bright prick to everyone, and get away with it with his genuine charm. It's just amazing. He has so many hilarious line readings, like the exchange with Mia, one of the female servers who gets soup accidentally spilled on her face. She comes to the table and he says, "What the fuck happened to you?" "I got burned with soup." "Don't you know you're supposed to blow on it first?" Or when he's having a roll call and says, "Who is Guy Meat Drapes?" "What kind of name is that?" It's Madropodes. It's Greek, sir." "I think you're pronouncing it wrong. It says Meat Drapes." "It's actually pronounced Madropodes, sir." "Well, why doesn't it sound like that when I say it? Meat Drapes." I'm telling you, if you don't enjoy crude humor, you would actually enjoy this for the love of Michael Clarke Duncan having an absolute blast with this. Number 6, In the Hive. Yet again, another little known independent film starring the legendary Duncan as Mr. Hollis, a tough as nails but soft as a teddy bear like teacher who teaches underprivileged boys to become better than what their upbringing has given them. One boy in particular, Extra Keys, yeah, not keen on the name, played by Jonathan Lil J. McDaniel, is of course against the unorthodox teachings and against the whole idea of rehabilitation. However, since Mr. Hollis discovers potential in the boy to progress in life, the boy has to tap into the special ability to take care of his son a whole lot better than his alcoholic and abusive mother, played by Vivica A. Fox. Yes, very formulaic. We've all seen it before in dozens of films, but you know what makes it special, guys? Michael Clarke Duncan, of course. His presence again just dominates the screen and obviously dominates every one of the students, but you can see the genuine charm the man inhabited just in his natural life taking over. Directed by the great Robert Townsend, it features a wonderful cast, including NAACP Image Award nominee for this, Loretta Devine, for her work here. It's surely a performance to commemorate from Duncan, especially that prison exercise where he has all the kids crowd together and he just goes to town on them. The scared straight tactic, if you will. However, Duncan does it with such class and heart and keeps the pace of it so strongly. You can't turn away from it. It's truly a gripping and marvelous example of the power he had, and what makes it even more precious is that it was the first of 4 films Duncan did that was released posthumously after his sudden death in 2012. Number 5, Daredevil. Ha ha! Oh yeah, we're talking about this, and in the top 5 it is, because as much as an embarrassment of riches this film adaptation is of the classic comic book hero, you cannot deny the best thing going for this whole film, and that is Michael Clarke Duncan as the ruthless and iconic Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. He is just perfect as Kingpin and just embodies the villain through and through, which Duncan, of course, took absolutely seriously. He bulked up an extra 20 pounds of muscle to his already 305 pounds, for God's sake, and then given lifts to tower over everybody else, especially Affleck as Daredevil, who was 6'4". I remember not much controversy at all with Duncan being cast as Kingpin, since the character is white in the comics, even though legend has it the character was initially written to be black. But the civil rights movement at the time swayed that from happening and didn't want villainy to be associated with the community anymore. Which, of course, his portrayal is so great that he even returned to playing Kingpin in the 2003 animated series of Spider-Man. And you can absolutely tell again, he is having the time of his life, riding high as this larger-than-life character. Now, I have not seen the director's cut, which I hear is a little better, but I'm only going off of the theatrical cut. And yeah, it ain't pretty, which is why a Netflix series was in order years later, and I hear that is phenomenal. I don't want to compare Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, since I haven't seen him in that yet. I love Liev Schreiber's Kingpin in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, goes without saying. I love both these actors, but nothing matches the charisma, the terrifying, gigantic colossus that is Michael Clarke Duncan as the evil Kingpin here. Number 4, The Challenger. Back to some independent filmmaking as we are, and this one certainly has so much merit that is honestly beautiful. Released in 2015, 3 years after his death, Duncan gives a powerful performance as a legendary boxing trainer who owns a laundromat because of past destruction with his boxers. However, because of potential in a young Bronx mechanic named Jaden, played by writer and director and co-editor Kent Morin, he comes back and trains the up-and-comer. But Jaden's got a lot to learn if he wants to go for the middleweight title shot. Okay, this film should be inspirational, given to the fact that this was Morin's directorial debut and how much of a one-man band he is with this film, and given to all the B-roll footage of him training, purely Rocky. But, call me crazy, I am a sucker for those. I love boxing movies, folks. I love stories about overcoming, so as cheesy as some of the dialogue is here, it still kind of works for me. And you know why? Michael Clarke Duncan is so real and so human as the trainer, Dwayne, who has a deeper connection to Jaden, given to Jaden's mom, played by the legendary S. Ipatha Merkerson. I love her. Again, you are captivated by his gripping passages about stepping up, becoming something greater than where you were and where you are now. It makes all the sense in the world because Duncan was an overcomer himself. overcoming all the odds of becoming a movie star and a successful actor in Hollywood. Hurts so much seeing this one because they have a lovely final placard tributing him, along with a behind-the-scenes little clip of Duncan just loving on all the crew and giving them so much hope, because that's the kind of guy he was. Talk about a real challenger who challenged everyone to be their best selves with encouragement. Number 3, the whole 9 yards. Frankie Figs. Absolutely genius. Directed by Jonathan Lynn, the mastermind behind Clue and My Cousin Vinny. This modern comedic classic starring Matthew Perry, rest in peace, buddy, as Oz, a thoroughly unhappy dentist in Canada, married to a complete witch with a capital B, finds out he has a new next-door neighbor. Just happens to be Jimmy the Tulip Tedeschi, a Chicago hitman with a bounty on his head, played fantastically by Bruce Willis. Oz befriends Jimmy, but not without getting all twisted in the calamity of crime and misdemeanors. Duncan shows up as mob boss Yanni, played by Kevin Pollak. He's brilliant. He plays his enforcer to take Oz back to try to find Jimmy, not knowing how far back Frankie and Jimmy go. For a film that has a lot of twists and turns, plot doesn't necessarily seem to matter too much in this. It's all about the characters. And you can tell this set was full of laughs and great times. The chemistry is just oozing off the screen between its leads, and that's including Duncan, of course. You buy him, of course, as a mob enforcer, but again, his funny bone is large and in charge right here, creating great moments with Willis, and technically their second film together. The film was indeed a great big hit, where Duncan was on top of the world, and we only wished we just had more of him. Number 2, Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. You're damn right it's this high, because let me tell you something, folks. Of all the stupid comedies Will Ferrell has made in his filmography, Talladega Nights is honestly the best one. Directed by Oscar winner Adam McKay, for crying out loud. Will Ferrell plays the great, legendary Ricky Bobby. How can you have 2 first names? And he's riding high as the best NASCAR driver there ever was, until French race car driver Jean Girard arrives in town and gives a deeper challenge to Ricky Bobby. Ricky hits rock bottom and has to climb to the top once again, and has to do it with a better and healthy mindset. You can never forget, if you ain't first, you're last. Michael, of course, plays Lucius, his crew chief, who's always on top of it and one of the best supporters for Ricky, even after Ricky's horrible race car accident. And thus, Ricky becomes, paralyzed. Not really. And the whole scene where John C. Reilly, who is also genius as Cal Naughton Jr., and Michael are trying to convince Ricky he totally is not paralyzed, and it goes a little off kilter, how Michael is just trying to contain himself and in convincing him is just the most hilarious. Starting off slow, Ricky, you can walk. What did you just say? You sons of bitches, you come in here on your 2 legs, all cocky. I hope you have sons, handsome, beautiful sons, and I hope they die a horrible death. And Michael just has one of the greatest meme phrases with, "Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that on us. You are not paralyzed." And from then on, it looks like it's all improv, which is always a visible thing in all of Will Ferrell's films, but especially this one. You talk about a film I thought I would never enjoy because of how many Will Ferrell films I'm really just not that much of a fan of. But this one, I believe, takes the cake in hilarity. Part of that is thanks to the brilliant supporting cast, which obviously includes the ever so amazing Michael Clarke Duncan. And now, here are some honorable mentions, folks. School for Scoundrels. Yeah, talk about comedies that are too stupid. But yeah, it's not a bona fide classic, let's be honest. But Michael Clarke Duncan adds a hilarious element to this adolescent comedy that gives it a little more of a human flavor. Directed by Todd Phillips, yeah, that's right, Oscar-nominated director of Joker, which I still can't believe, for he also directed the Hangover trilogy and Road Trip, so there you go. It's about a group of men in their 30s and 40s who need help from Billy Bob Thornton with building confidence in themselves to live a better independent life and, most importantly, get girls. Yeah, that's the most important thing, apparently. Duncan is his right-hand man, helping the nerds with even more tough love and abuse, so to speak. This is literally Revenge of the Nerds, just not as charming or funny. But, Duncan makes it fun. He always makes it fun. Armageddon. Hell yeah. Talk about guilty pleasures galore. As this Oscar-nominated implausible shit show is so damn enjoyable. I can't help myself. You know this ridiculous premise of a meteor the size of Texas coming towards Earth, and they need oil drillers to train as astronauts in order to fly up and drill a bomb in the meteor? Yeah. But with this cast, I mean Bruce Willis, who's ridiculous, Ben Affleck, who gives one of his better performances, honestly, Will Patton, Billy Bob Thornton, Steve Buscemi, Keith David, Peter Stormare, William Fichtner, Owen Wilson. We'll not talk about Liv Tyler here, but obviously Michael Clarke, in technically his first breakout role as Bear. Duncan is so fantastic and memorable in this, which apparently had to be re-inspired in him, again, by Willis and director Michael Bay. He nailed his audition, but then felt insecure once he got on set around these incredible actors, and his performance suffered. So Willis and Bay pulled him aside and said, if you don't bring back what you had in the audition room, we'll have to replace you. Don't tell him twice. Boom. He wasn't going to throw away his major opportunity here. And his charisma took stage, improving the great line, "Come on and get Papa Bear," which became a nickname for him. The Scorpion King. Yeah, remember when The Rock was still trying to be an actor? Yeah, he certainly will never forget earning $5.5 million as a salary for a first-time leading man in a film. Obviously the prequel to the Mummy series, where The Rock shows up as the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns. Except without that god-awful, daringly charming CGI. And here, he and Michael Clarke Duncan must join forces in order to take down the King Memnon. As a whole, the film is honestly bland and meh. However, the action sequences are decent. And yeah, everyone is still having fun on the set, especially Duncan and The Rock. The best scene is obviously their fight scene, where their swords accidentally broke on camera whilst filming. So they went with it, and The Rock accidentally elbowed Duncan in the jaw, knocking him down. Duncan made it a big prank that The Rock really hurt him. But once the crew and the rest of the cast found out that Duncan was just messing with him, it was a laugh riot. Duncan playing with him with another jab, "You better pray you don't hit me like that again." Ah, Duncan always loved playing them games. Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins. A nice little family comedy with Duncan playing big bullying brother Otis to Martin Lawrence's RJ, who comes home to visit his family in the Deep South. It's a decent little comedy with jokes that don't always land, but it's a great cast, including James Earl Jones, Margaret Avery, Cedric the Entertainer, Mike Epps, Monique, and of course, Duncan. His role is quite small, however, he makes it work. It's kind of a fun full circle since obviously Duncan was Martin Lawrence's bodyguard in the beginning days. A Night at the Roxbury. Me? Yeah, me, yeah, me, I am, you? Emilio! I can quote this movie all day long, being one of the best SNL movies ever made, and you can quote me on that. You know, a full-length movie that was inspired by a Saturday Night Live sketch, a brilliant one at that. It's always a crapshoot if it would work as a film, and it works amazingly here. Here in one of his first on-screen appearances, continuing his bouncing persona and past, Michael Clarke Duncan is credited as Michael Big Mike Duncan, playing the bouncer for the famous Roxbury nightclub that Doug and Steve Butabi want to get into. And getting into this club will be the gateway of making all their dreams come true, apparently. Duncan adds the perfect amount of just straight up sass and dry sternness of a bouncer. You just always remember the exchange, "What are your names?" "Doug Butabi, Steve Butabi." "Your brothers?" "No." "Yes? Oh man." And then they tried to bribe him with frickin' $8.25. And just the look on Michael's face is just priceless. It's like he grounds the ridiculousness happening within the beats, and it's just perfect. Practically like Duncan. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, The Green Mile. Of course, you knew it would be. Obviously, the most iconic role and performance Michael Clarke Duncan will always be remembered for, being his only Academy Award nominated performance for Best Supporting Actor as Stephen King's beloved character, John Coffey. Just like the drink, but not spelt the same. He is imprisoned at Cold Mountain Penitentiary, nicknamed the Green Mile, for the murder of 2 little white girls. Placed on death row, and being the Great Depression, there's no question he will get the chair soon. However, the guards, led by Paul Edgecombe, played wonderfully, of course, by Tom Hanks, experienced some supernatural miracles due to John Coffey's active blessings. Now we start to think, how can a murderer of 2 little innocent girls make such miracles happen? Based, of course, on the novel by Stephen King, adapted and directed by Frank Darabont, the brilliant mastermind behind King's other masterpiece, Shawshank Redemption. You all know it's a bona fide masterpiece, just like Shawshank. The key to this film, obviously, is having a strong cast, but really a strong actor, someone with such heart and soul and vulnerability to play John Coffey. And you talk about one of the greatest casting choices frickin' ever, with Michael as John. The producers had the most troubling time finding the right actor to play John. They looked at Ving Rhames, Shaquille O'Neal, for crying out loud, but Bruce Willis suggested Michael after their work in Armageddon. Now, that's a friend. Jesus, it seriously makes me tear up just thinking again and again on how beautiful Michael Clarke is in this film. He embodies again the gentle giant from head to toe with such grace and conviction, because he knew this was it. This was the great opportunity he had been waiting for, to play a character full of dignity and heart. Duncan gave everything to the role, doing sense memory for the dark and emotional scenes, picturing his father leaving him when he was very, very young. And you just believe every piece of sorrow and love he had in his heart. That makes all the more heartbreaking. Also, what's lovely to know is that it was certainly one of the most fun sets to be on, with this great cast like David Morse, Michael Jeter, who is also just beautiful as Dell, Barry Pepper, Sam Rockwell as Wild Bill, my God, Doug Hutchison as Percy, oh my God, he's amazing, James Cromwell, all the great heavy hitters. But that amazing sequence with Patricia Clarkson is so moving. It's what magical pictures are made of. Speaking of magic, the iconic sequence of John saying he's never seen him a flicker show, and they take John to see Top Hat with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and of course, singing the iconic number, Cheek to Cheek. Heaven, I'm in heaven. Cutting to Michael literally in heaven, just watching this dazzling movie, and he says, "They's angels, just like up in heaven." So amazing moments he has, especially again, his monologue about how tired he is. He is utterly perfect. He's just perfect. Only nominated for 4 Oscars, which is a damn crime it didn't win a thing. Because if Sir Michael Caine didn't do the Cider House Rules that year, I personally would have given that Oscar to Michael Clarke Duncan. And yes, talk about a hard year, with also Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense, and Tom Cruise for Magnolia, and then Jude Law for The Talented Mr. Ripley. But at the end of the day, Michael's brilliant and heartwarming portrayal as the lovable John Coffey will always be a performance of a lifetime, not just for Michael, but for the world. What a beautiful blessing, even as an actor, to have at least one great memorable role that's widely recognized and beloved. Being one of the most giving actors ever, he always was a man of the people, everyone's dear friend, especially Craig Ferguson, when he had his own late night show, appearing on the show a grand total of 18 times. The episodes where Craig took the crew to Scotland and did a huge special there, he takes Michael Clarke Duncan along, because their episodes where he's a guest were always flippin' hilarious and adorable. You know, when Craig Ferguson did a continuous tribute to him, he was absolutely crushed to lose such a dear friend, as we all were, dying from complications of a cardiac arrest at only 54 years old. You talk about also the epitome of dying too young. God, when you think of how many more opportunities he could have had, it just crushes you even more. But every time you look back on his performances, look back on his interviews, his spirit, we can still keep the dream, keep the hope, keep the smiles, and keep the love alive. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Now you tell me, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances by this amazing artist, Michael Clarke Duncan? Share in those comments below, my friends. I love hearing them every single time. If you like this, please click like, subscribe. As you know, the Patreon and the Spotify pages are up, so it would mean so much to me, folks, if you checked both of them out and subscribed, especially the Patreon page, where we have more individualized movie reviews, which you do not want to miss, guys. I'm telling you, like these patrons. But in the meantime, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and always remember to love and serve one another.